everybody. How's it going? It's Saturday night, and I'm just in the mood to, I don't know, I guess hang out. I don't even know what the word is. I'm just, I thought it would be, I thought it would be fun to just do a stream and possibly just hang and knit a little bit. I've been thinking about knitting for a while, so I was like, yeah, why not get on stream and knit something while just chatting, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. It's Saturday night, July 3rd. It's been a minute. It's been a wild couple of days, weeks, whatever you want to call it. It's been crazy. So I guess like life updates are in order, or should be in order. We kept saying we were going to stream, but we didn't stream this last week or two, actually, because of work obligations. So I'm back to working full time. And last week, when we were going to do our Strictly Stalking podcast review, I didn't know at the time, but it's the end of the month. It was the end of the month. Wednesday is actually the last day of the month. But and my job and the last week of the month is pretty intense. And then like the last day of the month is pretty intense. And there's like a push for a lot of work and stuff to happen. So work late. And so that was that. So I was kind of working a little later. And then by the time I got home, I was just like tired and didn't want to stream or anything. And I got home pretty much right at the time that we would normally be streaming anyway. So just didn't feel like doing it. I was tired. My brain was kind of like mush at that point. So end of the month, big time for my industry, is my new job. So that's that. We will pick up on Monday with the Strictly Stalking discussion. Both Angie and I have done a lot of research and getting some good info to share, some links and stuff to share with you guys, and some data to highlight what we're talking about. If you haven't listened to the podcast, again, I can't stress enough to go and listen to some of it. It's a good time, but not really. But it's interesting. It's fascinating. It's compelling. It's saddening. It's frustrating. It's all the feels. All the possible feels that you could want are pretty much there. Makes me really upset when I listen to it for so many reasons. So that's kind of what's going to happen with the podcast. Colleen and I are going to get our asses in gear at some point and actually like stream together again. Both of us have had rough patches. She's not feeling very well right now, so I don't want to force her to do anything. And my schedule has been kind of nutty, so I haven't really been doing a lot. Does anybody remember like in the 2000s when we did Stitchin' Bitches, like when that was a big thing? Hi, Toasty. It's just me. Like after the books came out, remember how popular that was when, everybody had like a Stitchin' Bitch group, and that was like a big deal. And that was like what? The 2000s, like early 2000s. Late 90s, early 2000s. I know I was in one. I was in the Stitchin' Bitch group. That's how I met my other best friend. That's how I met her through a knitting group. But yeah, it was just like, haven't thought about that in a long time. And I don't know, the last couple of days I've been thinking about knitting. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just pick it up. I didn't want to I'm very weird when it comes to knitting. Like I can be obsessively into it and then do it all the time. And I love knitting. Or I can be like, I go through these phases. I'm the same way with reading too. Like I go through these periods where I'll just read and read and read, or I'll knit and knit and knit. And then I just don't feel like doing it for a while. So I've taken a long break from knitting, and I grabbed the first project bag that was in my project basket because I have like bags of projects, works in progress all over the place in my house. So I figured something simple to work on while just sitting here chatting. And I'm assuming I don't have patterns. Well, I do, but I'm not using. I'm assuming I'm making a hat here. Judging from what it looks like, I'm using a pattern that is pretty standard. So that's what I'm doing. So but I was just like stitching bitch groups. Gosh, that brings back so many memories of living back on Long Island and working in my first management position and all the fun shit that went on with that, which wasn't really fun at all. And how that was just like the sign of things to come and everything, every single thing. Hi, Colleen. What? Colleen, do you want to join? I'll send you the link. You want to jump on? I'll totally send you the link if you want to chill and just sit here and bitch about shit. I know you probably have. I'm also having a cocktail, so this will last me. So far, this has lasted me for. Sure, I'm all ugly though. You're not ugly, honey. I will send you the link. Angie might join us too. I sent her the link and told her that she can jump on if she wants. And yeah, so I'm sending it to you right now, Colleen. And there it goes. Okay. Yeah. I'm having a drink that Angie actually put in my head because we've been, I don't know what it is. Like we've been getting into vodka lately, like flavored vodka. I have no idea why. Don't ask me. No clue. So ginger ale with peach flavored vodka. And I got to tell you, I don't like to drink very much, but this shit, it's the bomb, man. I'm loving it. So I have like one drink and I'm like good for the year. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the current status. Today was kind of rough. Ava my youngest has an ear infection. So we started the day off with that. Always a good time with the trip to urgent care. The nice side of that is that I found a new urgent care to go to in town that takes our insurance. That is actually like really fantastic. So that's good to know because I love our pediatrician, but sometimes she's just like really difficult to get an appointment with. So this is good to know that she's there and available when necessary. Yeah, she'll be fine, Toasty. She's just, you know what it is? They've been swimming a lot. So we got them a pool last week, and the first night they had it, they were in it for like 6 hours. The first day, it's 6 hours. And then they've been going in while I'm at work. And when I come home, like they go in for a little bit during the day and then they come home. And when I come home, they go back in it. So I think there's just been a lot of swimming happening. And yeah, so I kind of knew that. And then her tonsils were swollen and red too. So that's just true to form in this family with this, that it was probably going to end up turning into either tonsillitis or strep throat. So I'm glad we kind of caught this in the beginning stages of it, which is always good. But that's always a fun way to start a day, with having to take a run to urgent care. It's always a good thing. But she says she's feeling better now. She doesn't hurt. I mean, she just was complaining of ear pain. She just gave her a couple of shots of ibuprofen, sent her on her way, and I can hear her downstairs yelling. So she must not be feeling that badly. Yeah, she'll live. Hopefully, 5 days of antibiotics. Hopefully that'll pass. Colleen, the link is in your email if you need it. Hey, love, I'll be there soon. Okay, and take your time. I'm just doing my monologue. Again, I'm happy to have you. If you don't have to, if you don't want to, this is just me coming on thinking maybe I should talk a little bit about what's been happening with me. Hi, Colleen. So I've been let's back it up a bit. I've said I'm no shame in my game, and I've said this. Here comes Colleen. Okay, hi. Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I was just about to tell people, you gotta lower I can hear you in my Get ye some headphones, girlfriend. I just she missed you. Now I can't hear you, so you probably muted yourself. Or maybe I muted you. No, I didn't.
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you twice.
Well, that's probably because you're echoing, and I'm echoing in your. Well, that's probably. Yeah, I can hear the echo back at you from your computer. You need headphones, girl. And it keeps muting you when it does that for some strange reason. Unmute mic. I did unmute your mic. Did you mute yourself? Mute mic. There you go. Okay. Edit mic setting. Let's see what yours says. There you go. Echo cancellation's on.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to work on that.
Okay. I was just telling everybody how this is gonna be so weird. I can hear myself talking in the background of your house. How I have anxiety and depression, and I've had it for quite some time. She just left. She's probably gonna figure out what she's doing. So I have for like the last Scott and I have been married. We're gonna be married for 8 years. So for like the last 10 years, I've been on medication for anxiety and depression. Trying again. Let's see. Did you get your shit together? What's going on?
Yeah, I had you open in another tab.
Oh, that's always helpful. Yeah, that's better. I don't hear myself. Nobody needs that in their life. So I was just saying how I've been on an antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication for 10 years. I've been on Prozac and Wellbutrin. I lucked out. They both work. First time, first drugs, first everything.
Nice.
So our doctor, my psychiatrist who prescribes my medication, retired, and he gave me a prescription, and of course, he thought it would be long enough because that's what happens. But, in today's modern medical world, it does not take a short period of time to get in with a new doctor. So my appointment is on Wednesday, and I probably ran out of medication about a week and a half ago. So,
okay.
Yeah, it sucks. So I've been like really super depressed. I only went off my Wellbutrin once, and that was when I was pregnant with Mariella. I tried to go off my Wellbutrin, and it lasted a week because it was so bad. And the doctor was like, no, just go back on. It's not worth it. It was really bad. So I am feeling really, really low and really anxious about stuff. Obsessive thought. My big anxiety thing was obsessive thoughts. Like that was my thing. I would just get on like a endless loop of obsession. Like of what if, that was me. And it noticeably goes away when I'm on my medication. So not having it has kind of sucked. So like the littlest shit is like making me extraordinarily anxious. And makes me feel like I just am not an adult at all because I have like no capacity to handle things, which is just like But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know how I lived like this for 30 years. Like, I just don't understand how that was even possible. So yeah, so Wednesday we go. I hopefully get my new prescriptions, and this will stop. But it sucks. It's been really bad. It kind of came to a head this week. Today, I've kind of been slowly digging myself out, but it's hard. It's really hard. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
brings up a lot of issues. So, but that's what's been going on with me, and I hate it. I love my job still. I mean, that's good. Everybody's still really nice. I still really like doing. Here she is. Let's see what. Yeah, hold on. Hello.
We're a cat with a loaf with a piece of bread around her neck today.
Okay. Is that Agnes? That's not Agnes.
Gladys, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Gladys. Is that Gladys? That is. Okay. Did you actually put the bread on her head?
That, you know what that is? That's one of those like cone of shame things.
Oh.
Instead of, but it's shaped like a piece of bread.
That's awesome.
My daughter sometimes wants me to get strange things for her.
Uh-huh.
She called me one. She's like, "Mom, get this for Gladys and take a picture of her for me."
That's so funny that I called her Agnes. Agnes is my grandmother's name, but like it's an old lady name too, so that sounds close. Except that when I worked at Drexel, like one of my student assistants was a Chinese girl who was from China, and her name was Gladys. I was like, where did you get Gladys from?
Gladys is the best name
She
ever.
said that they picked like they chose an Americanized name, and I was like, and you chose Gladys. That's interesting. That's not like you don't hear that very often in 2000 in the year 2000. But
In the
anyway,
year of our Lord.
yeah, it was 2000. So I was just explaining how I've been depressed immeasurably for the last 2 weeks because I've had no medication, which is
It's
awesome.
terrible.
I know.
It's
awful.
terrible.
It is terrible. Colleen, how are you feeling?
I feel
That good, huh?
yeah. So I've got a chronic pain problem that they're not sure what it is. So I have an inflammatory joint disease, but right now all my inflammation markers are really low, but I'm in an extraordinary amount of pain.
Mhm.
And
Surprise!
and so I have to go see the rheumatologist next week, and she's going to tell me that my blood tests are fine, and I'm going to tell her that I'm not fine.
Mhm.
And then she's going to call it fibro, and then everybody's going to be like, well, we don't really understand fibro and we don't know what to do about it. So
Right.
it's been a long day.
Yay.
So back on that hamster wheel.
Yeah, it's been a long day of trying to stay as still as I can possibly be. But
I can't stand that shit. Angie, are you cooking? She sounds like she's cooking breakfast.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I'm just getting ice and filling
Oh.
up. I was
I don't know
rinsing
why
out my.
it sounded like you were frying an egg for a minute. I'm like, is she cooking breakfast over there? What's going on? Not that I have a problem with it, but and the
No, I was
fireworks.
just
The
running
fireworks
water.
are going off right now, so that's great fun.
Yeah.
how are the pets with the fireworks?
Oh, they hate it.
Yeah.
Dave is probably under a blanket right now, shivering away, miserable.
Poor Dave.
I know. And I would let him in here, but I think it's worse in the office because my office faces the Little League stadium that they always put like humongous fireworks. I can hear it through my headphones. So if I can hear it through my headphones, y'all probably may be able to hear some banging in the back.
My frying my egg or the fireworks?
Both. It sounds to me like you're frying an egg, but I mean, it might be water. I don't know, but it sounds like an egg.
It's the
frying.
water.
Oh.
It's the water. I'm done with the water. I just had to fill up my
I'm
ice
just
tray.
teasing you.
That's like the one disciplined thing I do in my life is I always refill the ice trays. Like I may not, do my laundry on a regular basis or get birthday cards for people or, pay my taxes. But I always refill my ice trays, like always.
I have an ice maker and it's broken right now in my refrigerator, so I'm waiting to get that fixed. And
Never
so
had an
I
ice
buy
maker.
I buy like 8,000 bags of ice a week, and the people at Target probably think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I buy like 8 21-pound bags of ice
You're not
because
crazy,
that's
you're
how
just
much
depressed.
ice I'm hoarding ice. I'm so glad I have a separate freezer.
Next thing you know, the FBI is going to be knocking at your door looking for bodies. They're going to look at your search history, your true crime search history, and they're going to start looking for bodies.
Oh, well.
So I send my nephew all the podcasts we listen to, and I sent him a link to that. Did you see the link that I sent you about that Park Predators
Yes,
one?
I'm already subscribed to that podcast.
I figured. I just, it was new to me, right?
Yeah.
So I sent it to him, and he goes, "Do you think you might want to like be a little bit less murdery with your interests?"
No.
And I'm like, "What?"
No,
I'm
not
just
at all.
saying.
Nope. I told everyone at work, I'm like, I have my headphones on. It's probably either murder or music. You're gonna have to. You don't know which one it is. And then sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I gotta leave this conversation. I can put my headphones back, and I gotta know how this story ends. I gotta know what's going on. Gotta listen to my stories. They're not really stories though, because they're real life. So yeah, no, I love true crime. I've always loved true crime. Colleen, you like true crime, don't you?
Yeah, we watched it a lot when I was a kid, whenever it was an option.
Because your mom loves it.
My mom keeps that Investigation Discovery channel on 24/7.
All murder, all the time.
All the time. All of the ways in which you can possibly be murdered by your neighbor, by your spouse, at work.
By a complete and total stranger.
They've got a show for everything. I think it's amazing.
They do. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And then there are so many good YouTube channels with true crime. Like, I love that chapter. I have to admit, I do have a crush on Mike. So that's probably part of it because he's adorable. Y'all, you know what I'm talking about. He's like, I think he's Irish. He's really cute.
What, that chapter?
That chapter. His accent is really cute. He's adorable. He looks like a little, like, I don't know. He's just cute. Ava has a huge crush on him. And his delivery is hilarious though, because he's so fucking deadpan with everything. He'll make like these really cutting, sarcastic jokes and just look at the camera like. So it's kind of funny. So I love his channel. I love JCS Criminal Investigations, which is a YouTuber who he's I guess he's a criminal psychologist, and he actually takes footage from interviews, from interrogations, and breaks them down and explains like all the psychology behind them, like why the police officer is asking the questions the way that they are, and like the responses of the of the perpetrator. Like, it's really interesting. He gives a lot of really good insight into. The one he did on Jodi Arias is like fucking insane. So she's just crazy. Like, that bitch is just nuts.
Did you see that Target has like its complete own CSI lab that's better than most cops versions?
No, what the hell are you talking about? No.
So I tripped over this on Twitter. And they were, so people who work for Twitter are like, who work for Target, were in their loss prevention, were saying that not only do they have cameras everywhere, but they've got like secret shopper, folks on the floor.
Oh, good. Now I feel great about when I put shit on the wrong place when I don't want it anymore. Fuck. Okay.
Can I tell you?
I'm too lazy.
That all the time, and I do.
And I'm too lazy to put it back. I feel a lot of shame. I do feel a lot of shame about it. But
apparently, Target is using facial recognition software, and what they'll let people do is they will rack up enough shoplifting until they can charge them with a felony.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't do any shoplifting at Target, but I'm there enough that I'm wondering if they just know me by facial recognition, and they all say hi to me when I walk in, but not the hi that they give to the regular people. They're always like, "Hey, hon, how are you? I haven't seen you in a little bit." I'm like, "I haven't seen you in 3 days." Yeah, it's great.
They don't give you the norm greeting.
I don't think they know. Yeah, well, the manager always does. It's crazy. I'm like, I know you because not only do I see her at Target, I see her at Safeway all the time. So she's probably like one of my neighbors who lives pretty close to me. I don't know.
Target is the devil.
I love Target.
They have their own forensics labs.
I believe it. Because in the grand scheme of things, shoplifting is probably not a huge thing that like the police care to worry about that much or have time to. So Target's probably like, fuck it, let's just handle this ourselves.
Yeah, apparently they're one of the more tech-forward companies when it comes to that.
I bet. Yeah. Who knows what goes on in that back room at Target? Now I want to know. Somebody has posted this on. I guarantee you, there's a YouTube video someplace. We gotta find it.
I don't like that they're using facial recognition. That brings out the old Angie that used to like be a prepper and.
Oh gosh!
Don't tread on me. That brings out the "don't tread on me." Not the yellow flag with the snake in me.
There's facial recognition everywhere.
My guns, my Second Amendment.
We're good.
Oh my God! Mary's like, stop right now! I'm trying to build my channel.
I'm laughing because I love all you 2A militia people. You crack me up. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have plenty of guns in my house. Plenty of guns in my house. But, I always laugh at the militia people who decide that they're going to take a standoff on some, like, federal land because they don't like what's going on. And I'm just like,
my cows need to graze.
You and your 50 friends with your guns are totally going to be, like, a huge match for the United States military. I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be awesome.
You're going to take them down.
My cows.
The cows need to graze.
I love it.
My
thinking is the only way you'll ever successfully overthrow our government is if you have a huge like detraction on the military level. Like you'd have to have like a branch or at least 2 branches of the military probably on board with that before you even like be partially successful.
The only people that are going to
no way that the people in Wyoming, God love them,
all 12 of them,
all 12 of them, oh God love you, are going to overthrow the government.
All 12 people in Wyoming left the entire state.
Yeah. Well, let me just while we're on the topic of like very, very non-dense city. So like I was listening to, I think it must have been an episode of That Chapter. It was either an episode of That Chapter. It had to be because he was making all these Fargo, North Dakota jokes. So,
the most recent one.
Yeah, and he actually says on there, it's because he likes to give a little commentary about where this is happening, and it's like 150,000 people live in Fargo, and he's like, and it's the most densely populated city in the state. And I'm like 150,000 people. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. That might be my town twice. I'm like, wow. So that just tells you how many people are living in North Dakota.
Yep, and they all come here for their health care. We take care of a lot of people from North Dakota.
Really?
For kids.
Oh, okay.
Like regionally, Minnesota is a healthcare. It's a medical care hub.
Okay. Yeah.
And then for pediatrics, it's definitely a hub.
That makes sense. Okay. I'm trying to think. I one of my first library colleagues was talking to me about how, and she's probably maybe 10 or 15 years older than me, and was telling me about her first job was in Grand Forks, North Dakota, her first library job. Why you picked that, I don't know. And how when they took her on her interview, like, and this is like I don't in like the 80s or like maybe late 80s or mid to late 80s, they took her to Target for dinner. It was like a big deal. Like the Target had just opened and it had a food court.
Mm-hmm.
And she would tell these stories about how she lived close enough to the library that she could walk to work every day. And so she did. And because it was, and even in the winter, because it was a lot quicker than having to like put the block warmer on the car and like go.
Mm-hmm.
So she used to walk to work, and then there was like a school that was right next, like in the middle of her walk, and she got to know the janitor because the janitor would unlock the door and she'd walk through the school to the library, like, you know, so she'd have like a warm, like a few minutes of warmth as she walked through.
Mm-hmm.
She said one time the snow was so bad, she was walking home and it was like whiteout conditions and she almost lost her way and was like, and I'm like, why would you live someplace like that? Like, what? Why? Why would you do that to yourself? I don't know. I could
one time,
Colleen again.
One year up here, there was a snowstorm. Like, I've never been through like an epic Minnesota. Where's Colleen?
I don't know. She'll probably pop back up in a minute.
Colleen, come back. I've never been through like the epic Minnesota snowstorms. Like, I've been through a couple of really bad ice storms up here, but like one time. We had a snowstorm that was so bad, and my daughter had to get her teeth pulled for her braces, and we had this appointment scheduled, and it was in February, and the snow was like, it was snowing so bad, and our dentist's office was literally 2 blocks away.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to do this. The dentist's office was open, so we went, right? And we walked to the dentist's office, 2 blocks. It took us a half hour.
I believe it.
To walk in the snow, and we had to take the bus. One bus stop. Like, and the bus in a blizzard in Minnesota, the bus didn't stop running. And the bus wasn't late.
Because it's fucking Minnesota, man. They ain't gonna stop for like snow.
I love it. I love it. I will never move somewhere where there's not winter, like where it doesn't, like, you don't get like at least 4 months of winter. You're like, I have to have winter.
I like winter.
I have to.
I liked North Carolina because you got all the seasons.
And it's just so beautiful.
It's gorgeous, but I mean, like, even like fall is beautiful there. Like, but you know, winter is a pain in the ass because they're not really a snow state. It's more of well, not in the mountain part. It's more of an ice situation that really causes a lot of problems. And man, when I tell you, when they get some ice or like something, they close down that city, the Raleigh, they close that state down like it's nobody's business. I don't know if I could, like, I just don't know if I could live anywhere where like serious weather would be a situation. Like, I was watching something else.
You get the fires though. Like, that's, I couldn't do that. Like, it's all trade-offs, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, every place has its own thing going on, right? I mean, like, the fires suck because we don't live close enough to like where it's going to be an issue of us getting catching. It's just all the smoke pollution that's really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, earthquakes. I still haven't really experienced an earthquake since I've been here, so I don't know. But like, I don't want to live anywhere where a tornado is possible. Those I find scary.
When the first year I moved up here, like, tornadoes aren't supposed to hit in cities. Like, there's something about like the asphalt and tall buildings and stuff like that changes like the temperatures, and it just makes tornadoes less stable. So they don't generally touch down in cities. You get like the weather effects of tornadoes, but you don't get tornadoes. But there's something about Minneapolis. Tornadoes touch down in Minneapolis. When I first moved up here, there was a tornado that touched down in Bloomington, Minneapolis. And about 10 years ago, there was literally a tornado that ripped through downtown Minneapolis. And it was like 3 blocks behind where I live. And
It's
so
your
now
fault.
I know, right? You can drive down the street behind me on, the main streets behind me. They're like one-way streets, but you can drive down them and you can just see where all the trees were just, and they were like hundreds-year-old trees gone. They're just like, you go from like being under a canopy of hundreds-of-year-old trees to nothing.
Yikes. No thanks.
And it's just such an anomaly. It's just something about Minneapolis that tornadoes occasionally touch down inside of a city. It's just crazy because you just don't generally see tornadoes hitting in cities. I really need to leave Minneapolis.
Where do you want to go?
I don't know. I'm thinking about going back home to being near my family, or maybe like, Mississippi or somewhere like that, because I really do like the South, but I do want to be somewhere with 4 distinct seasons and something of a longer winter, though. I really like the winter, but I don't know. Like this summer, I'm doing this summer with no air conditioner. I have my little air conditioner in my bedroom, and I'm decided not to turn on my big air conditioner in my living room. So I did one heat wave that was absolutely miserable. And, we've gotten back up to 97 degrees, and it's actually been really manageable without a big air conditioner running at all. So, like, it's been really rather manageable. And I'm like, hey, like, maybe I could do it. Huh?
I'm jealous.
What, 97?
It's like 104 degrees here, right?
So I don't want to live like that.
I know, and I had no idea it was like that until I moved here. So I always thought California was like mild. Like,
I always thought California was like paradise. No, it's the freaking desert. It's the desert.
Well, where we are, it is like that. I mean, Southern California, I like Southern California a lot. Like where Colleen lives, I love that area. I don't know. Like if I was going to stay in California, I would probably like to move to like Southern California, but that's not like happening anytime soon. But if I was to get out of California, I think I'd really want to just go back to North Carolina. So that's kind of like a goal. We'll see.
I have a nephew who lives in North Carolina, and I think it would be nice to like just show up on his doorstep and be like, guess what? You're out here all by yourself, and now you got family, like that would be so nice. Because he's made his own network out there, like on his own, just living out there. But it would be nice to be like, surprise.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck with me. Let's make a worm farm in your backyard, just to drive him crazy. Because like I'm that aunt, that does the crazy shit. To be calling his mom like, please come and get her. Please come and get her.
Why did you do this to me?
She'll be like, nope, it's your turn now. You get to keep her now.
You deal with her for a while. I had to live with her growing up.
I grew up with her. I've had her all my life. It's your turn.
I don't know. I wrote a little epic story time thread on Twitter today. It was fun.
Did you?
Yeah, would you like me to read it to you?
Oh, so I don't have Twitter.
I know. I was just saying. So I wrote it and I was like, oh, she's not going to get to see this because she doesn't have Twitter anymore.
Nope.
No.
I
just can't give it up. I can't give it up. I don't know why. Let's see. Okay, so you're going to know exactly where this is coming from. Let's see this. I gotta go scroll back here. Okay. I've been kind of quiet lately because I'm in a deep hole of depression and anxiety. Been here a couple of weeks, doctor's appointment on Wednesday, and new drugs will hopefully help a lot. Every day gets a bit better. Today, I feel good enough to post a story time thread. 14 years ago, I accepted what I thought would be a dream professional position. It was in a new city that I was excited to move to take on the promotion that I was eager to take on, and the salary pretty much ensured a quality of life improvement. So I jumped on it and began my tenure at XYZ Library at ABC University. At first, it was great. Lots to learn and take in, lots to observe, lots to note. About a third into my first year, the problems and issues that they were very honest about existing started to rear their heads, and this began my 15 months of being the Grim Reaper. Endless cycles of performance reviews, HR meetings, terminations, etc. I was not new to any of this. I had extensive experience in this area, and it was one of the reasons why I was hired. My professional rep was as someone who got shit done and will help you turn around departments or usher those who need to go out the door. Not the most fun or happy aspects of working, particularly not fun when it's an everyday thing for months straight. While all this was happening at work, my personal life was also changing. My partner and I had been together over a decade, and it's been together over a decade, and it was the classic going in different directions situation. I was not happy. So not happy at home, deeply angry and frustrated at work. This continued for about 3.5 years. Outwardly, I was becoming angrier, nastier, meaner, low patience, more sarcastic. And then I wrote, I'm sure Colleen can back me up and probably has receipts. And then she responded saying, what did she respond? She responded saying to that just as a thing, where is it? I can't find the response that she took. She put something like, I was there, there were reasons. That's what she wrote. I was mean. My patience was gone. I snapped a lot. I was terribly unhappy and treated people I cared about terribly. At the beginning of year 3, a lot of heavy stuff happened. My beloved grandmother passed. My partner and I split, and he was moving out. Shit was going down at work with a particular problem employee. It was a terrible time, and my anger, frustration, irritability, and sadness were incalculable. But by something that I can only attribute to the universe's hand or sense of humor, I met my husband. My husband is honestly, no joke, not even a bit of an exaggeration, one of the kindest, sweetest, warmest, open-minded, and open-hearted people on the face of the earth. Everyone loves him. He's beloved, no joke. He's never had a bad thing to say about anyone, always sees the good in everyone, but is also a sharp judge of character and intent. He's hard to pull the wool over on, and he met my sour as fuck ass and liked me enough to want to know more. We fell in love. I left that job, moved cross country, started a new position at 123 Library at 789 University. Life was improving. With time and space, I started looking back at the previous years and the person I was. I was mortified. My behavior embarrassed the fuck out of me. I felt awful, terrible, like I was a pod person. Look, I was never all sunshine and roses, but I was also never a raging bitch all the time, 24/7. I don't know that person. As I recognized and owned my terrible behavior and actions, I started therapy, got on meds, dropped a lot of weight I gained, made a lot of changes, became a better, happier person, the me I knew I was. I recognized how insanely depressed, angry, and unhappy I'd been, and how I took all of that and projected it outward. I took all of my pain out on others. I was a shitty person who got shittier on the daily. I went to my friends and family, who are such wonderful people, for standing by me, and apologized to them. I owned and admitted my bad behavior and then asked for forgiveness. It was very healing, almost the final step of the healing process. I'll never forget that time in my life and the profound negative effect it had on me mentally, emotionally, and physically, and in turn, how it negatively impacted others. I actively work to never go near that mental space again, which is why when I say that I believe that mean people are profoundly unhappy people, I know what I'm saying. Been there, done that, saw what I did to others, friends and strangers alike. And if you see yourself becoming progressively more unhappy and nasty, you may want to step back and check out what's up with yourself. It's never late to change. It's not easy. It hurts, but it hurts way less than perpetual anger. And the payoff at the end is amazing. The end. And then I said, edit it to add. I've taken a poll and have data to back up those claims about my husband. Everyone loves him immediately. It's annoying as fuck. He says it's because he gives amazing hugs. I say it's just because he's a beautiful soul. So that was my thread. But I also had one before that where I was like, I I was like, because I'm just fed up at this point. I said, when a stranger's life, particularly misfortunes, take up so much of your own time, energy, and life, how do you live with yourself? There are better ways to make a living. Celebrities refer to the paparazzi and the tabloids as rags and trash for a reason. This is no different. I don't get it. Even when I get sucked into drama, as for an example, the creep show art stuff, even when I wasn't working, my time was limited. Yeah, I have kids and they're a time sink, but there's also always basic life home shit to do. No hobbies, no friends, no lovers or family, no other interests. If I were to be this obsessed, the take-home message I'd immediately get is that this is a sad existence that I'm watching. I'd even be more motivated to find other things to do, to invest some effort into self-improvement. That's honestly the lesson. That's honestly been the lesson for me. It's what I think about when I start slipping into depression or feel myself slacking or off or getting lazy. Don't mean me wrong. I don't look at others' misfortune as inspiration. I want everyone to thrive, but I do look at behaviors and actions and check myself. It's about choices, and I succeed more than I fail. But when I fail at choosing kindness, I try to do better the next time. And then somebody was like, what did they say? Oh, so Colleen's all right. Colleen had a moment. Maybe she might be back. Somebody was like, it's all projection. It's escapism from their own like crappy lives. And I was like, well, here's the really shitty truth about escapism. And, I get that, but I was like, all you got to do is make some different choices and you can kind of escape the shittiness of your life if you want to. I mean, like, nope, you're not locked up in jail.
Right.
And, and then they were like, but I was like, I know, effort, time, self-awareness, energy, honesty, yeah, blah, 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 blah. So there's that. So I'm just kind of like, because I'm so sick and tired of the glee that I'm watching at other people have. The glee I'm watching other people have at, not the best people, probably really shitty people, to be honest, but shitty people's bad life misfortunes. Like, just because you don't like somebody or they're a terrible person and they're having a hard time, it doesn't mean you have to like be just like throwing a party because they're having a bad time.
Right.
I don't know. That's kind of
the
mood that's happening.
I guess right now. I found for me to just separate from all of it because you just can't make anybody better but yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad that I'm at work and I don't have to look at this shit anymore.
Yep.
But it just highlights how like nasty people are. It really does. Yes.
It does. It does. And I'm just glad that I choose not to be nasty anymore.
Yeah. Right? Right?
But speaking of work, did I tell you my good news about work?
No. What's your good news about work? Tell me.
I get to go back to work.
Do you?
I get to go back into work. I don't have to.
Oh my God. I know how excited you are about this.
So I apparently was on the list. I was not on the list of people who were supposed to work from home full time. Okay. But my boss's boss got a new job. So she got distracted and never sent the memo to my boss that I was not supposed to be sent home full time for work. So it was just like, send Angie home from work, you stay home from work with everybody else. And I was like, oh, please find a way to make it so I can come back.
So when you come back,
I can't do anything. Well, the end of July is when I am official, but I have a lot of telehealth appointments that I have scheduled through August.
Right.
So I'm going to just finish those because I don't want to go back and forth.
Yeah.
I just want to work until all of those are finished. And then I will probably just work like Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and take Wednesday off because I have a 3:00 or maybe I'll just do something like work 7 to 2:30 or something on Wednesday, or I don't know. I'll figure something out because I have a 3 o'clock standing appointment every 2 weeks
Right.
on Wednesday, but and then everything else I'll just schedule either super early in the morning or super late in the evening.
Oh, that's
Starting
so
in
good.
August.
I know how excited
So
you are. Like,
I'm
I know how
so
much you missed
excited.
it. I know.
And
How
it's
many people
just,
are a lot of people from your area back at work already, or have been
well,
back?
I mean, everybody at my job, nobody like in 2020 they had like rolling furloughs that they did like
Oh,
3 stages of furloughs, so
uh,
all the people that were going to get furloughed, they did like 3 stages, so everybody was back to work by I think August of 2020, but
mhm,
then they sent as many administrative staff home to work from home as they
mhm,
could,
mhm.
and then they announced in July that 700 of those people that they sent home were going to be staying home full time. So,
Aw,
but my position has always been flexible. Like I could always work from home as I needed to, and my boss has always been very flexible. But I've always chosen not to because I just am more productive at work.
yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah,
And
I'm
you'll
so excited.
get to see people.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm not even like, I'm just super psyched to have like a separation between work and home. I can get
Oh, I
this
know. I know.
table
That's
out of the middle of my living room because I don't have a big apartment. You know, I have a
right.
very
Yeah.
small apartment and it takes up all of my living space. So I don't live in my apartment. I just work in my apartment and then I go in my bedroom and I,
Yeah.
lay in my bed all day, and I just want to live in my apartment again. I want to get back to watching TV. I haven't
Yeah.
watched my television in a year. I just started listening to Spotify on my TV again just to turn on my TV because I don't turn my
Right.
TV on. So I'm so excited to like have a normal life, to like come home and cook dinner and put the leftovers away and take the leftovers for lunch and all of that
That's
kind of stuff because I haven't been doing that because
I know.
it's like,
Normalcy is so overrated, is so underrated sometimes.
yeah.
I
So,
gotta say. Oh,
and I think like it'll be really interesting to like live this way from like a binge eating disorder recovery perspective as well.
oh yeah.
Like it's easier like for me, I think it's easier to meal plan this way and
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
set different kind of like goals this way and
When you're in the office space, you're on a time schedule, regardless of what you think or
hmm
not. So it just
right.
helps it just helps regulate some time. Like I always find that I do worse when I have large blocks of unscheduled time.
hmm
Like once in a while, great. But when it's every day and I'm like left to my own devices, it can become very scary.
Right.
Which
And
is
sitting right next to my kitchen, it's like quite the distraction.
yeah, I bet.
So
I hear you. I totally hear you. Totally get that. So
I'm
have you
super excited about that.
listened to anything else lately, podcast wise?
Well, I've been working on the
Park
ones,
predators. Oh
the park predators and the ones you sent me that we'll be talking about. And I just we're gonna have to pick something like watching kittens on live stream and have like a different kind of dopamine hits some here because
why?
because like this true crime is getting to me.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just
Fine.
messing with you. I'm just messing with you. But I was just like this anti antiseptic or what is this guy anti-sense and then
Dude, that dude is fucking
crazy. I couldn't get past the first episode. I felt like, oh my God, okay, this is gonna be a ride and a half. I'm gonna have to start this fucking thing on a Monday, like, and so I'm like, gonna go, okay, so let's go to the Lost Kids, and I'm like, okay, Daniel, I'm gonna have to start this on a Monday too. I started that one, yeah.
All right, so that one I want to talk about as our next one because I've actually read a couple of books about this back before it became like a huge, before this. Like I read this one book called The American Gulag, and it's about this exact phenomenon. So as soon as the podcast started, I was like, oh, we're going to be about that. Okay. Because I read about this, like, I want to say like a decade ago.
About this particular camp?
No, about these alternative schools type things.
It's like Anunnaki all over again.
Mm-hmm. It's called, all right, it's called, this book came out in 2000. That's when it's called An American Gulag, Secret POW Camps for Teens.
Yes.
And so it's written by Alexia Parks. And it says, desperate parents, troubled teens, tragic stories of desperate parents, the choices they made, and how you can avoid making their same mistakes. In America, it's open season on children. They become the cash crop for a rising industry of child abuse that targets anxious or worried parents of defiant, angry, depressed, or troubled youth. Vulnerable, frightened children are abducted from home or school and sent like prisoners of war to rural, remote schools and campuses throughout America. In her shocking book, An American Gulag, Secret POW Camps for Teens, behind closed doors with no one to witness their pain and suffering, these captive children may suffer abuse, sexual abuse, and torture at the hands of strangers. The book opens with a high-speed chase down backcountry roads as the author searches for a disappeared young relative. The unfolding story describes her descent into a secret underworld of child abuse and her discovery of America's gulags, right? So like I had found this book. I don't even remember why, like what turned, like how I got tipped off to it. I think I read an article or came across like an article in like, I want to say like Bust magazine or something. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And this book talks about a couple of those like wilderness camp experiences where they send you out in the middle of the nowhere and desert or whatever. But it also talks about, because there's several of these places that operate outside of the United States. And they, like, I can't remember if it's like a couple of them have, like, they have places in like possibly, because I'm recalling this back from like forever. Hold on, let me see if they even mention it. They had, like it, I want to say there's like in Haiti or Jamaica, they sent these kids were like were sent to place, like they're run by people from United States citizens, but because they live outside of their house outside the United States, they're not held to US law. So a lot of the shit that they do is like completely illegal. So I was just like riveted by this because I had no idea these places existed. Like I knew from like Maury Povich and all those stupid shows that, you know, they send these kids to like these boot camps, but I had no idea that like I knew boot camp existed, but I didn't know like these residential, you know, these residential boarding school like treatment facility. And that I use treatment very, very, very loosely. You know, like it just killed. Like I had no clue that these existed, but yeah. So I read this book and I was like, oh shit, that's interesting. And then it seemed like you never heard about it ever again. And so then to know that like, and then like if you look at on the Amazon page for this book and you look at some of the reviews, like it doesn't get very good reviews because it's like they call it like trash. But there's a couple from like actual people who are survivors of this of these places. And if you do like a search for people who survived these treatment places or these places of schools, you'll find a ton of stuff. And it's just crazy. Like it's crazy. Like the fact that I was more blown away by let's two things. I was more blown away after reading this book, and they didn't mention it in the podcast, but they kind of allude to it when you listen while you get a little deeper into it, and they start talking to a couple of people who are like affiliated with the program or the school that like that parents would or the schools, if the parents requested, they would literally abduct your child. They would come in the middle of the night, take your kid, like wake them up out of bed, tell them like we're going, and they would literally like shackle them and put them in a truck and take them to either the airport and escort them there. Like they would abduct your kids. Because you knew, like, if you knew your kid didn't want to go and you thought they were going to be a real problem getting them there, you could hire them to come and abduct your kid and transport them to the school, which is it's like insanity, like complete and utter insanity. It is. I mean, like, and the thing, and I'll say this, and if we talk about this in more depth at some point, it's going to come up again. But what really struck me to the point of infuriation, and I thought about this as I was listening to the podcast and then recalling the book, was that none of these kids were doing things that were really that far out there. Like, right. They were not, like, nobody was out of people that they interviewed and nobody was in trouble with the law. Nobody was breaking any laws. They were like being kids. They were they were hitting puberty and being kids
and having like sex and
or their hormones were kicking in. They were depressed. They were like sexually curious. They smoked cigarettes or drank a little bit with their friends, or they were moody and mopey. Like these were not horribly out of control children, and their parents like just couldn't handle it. Now, one of the girls they feature in the podcast sounds like her mother was her own fucking problem. Like she had her own issues and like just didn't want to be a parent and was like, oh, I can send my kid someplace else. Fine. But Daniel's parents really annoyed the shit out of me because they sounded like they really cared about their kid a lot. And I get that like culturally, like grades are really important to them. And that like, his mother was so shocked. It was like a bullet to the heart that he was smoking. And I'm like, lady, get over it. like, like she was devastated. Nobody in my family ever smoked. And I'm like, oh, God almighty. So like, this is what we're dealing with here. So I'm just like, and that's the part that kills me. It's like, they really got conned into believing that their kid was so out of control. Like, they said they took him to therapy. They tried this. Did you try medicating him for his depression that he obviously had? Like, did you try? Like, I mean, it bothered me. Like, I was actually talking to Scott about this and I was like yelling. I was just like, as a parent, I have so many feelings about this. And like, I can tell you right now, if Daniel was my kid and he was going through what he was going through, the fucking last thing I would do is ship him off to a fucking school on the other side of the country where I couldn't even see him or talk to him on the regular. Like I would try everything else in my power first before, like, they literally just shipped him off to California from New Jersey. Like, who the fuck does that? I'm just like, and I mean, now don't get me wrong. I think there are kids that are absolutely in problem children who are like, they get in trouble legally. They have all sorts of behavioral issues that are beyond like, that probably need in-care facility treatment, resident at a medical fucking psychiatric facility, possibly not at, like, to me, if you're at the place where you think your child's behavior is so fucking outlandish that you need to send them to a residential boarding school, then you might as well just send them to like a mental institution where theoretically people who can live. Do you remember
the year that this happened to Daniel? I don't remember what the year was.
I will look it up. Hold on. Lost Kids Daniel.
Not that it really matters. I don't know. I can't imagine what it I can't imagine what it.
So just ABC News, new clues emerge 15 years after teen's disappearance. So this was from 2019. So this happened in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, but so here, so like let's just 15 years after a high school student mysteriously vanished in California, his sister is hoping a new clue. I mean, like, his sister doesn't even know him, like at this point, really, vanished in his sister's hoping a new clue will finally bring her family answers. Selena Yuen said the mystery began when Daniel Yuen, her older brother, started struggling with depression his sophomore year of high school in New Jersey. We were doing everything we could to really help him. She told NBC News her parents took him to several psychiatrists, and one of them recommended he attend a boarding school specializing in helping children with depression. In January 2004, Daniel started at the CEDU school in San Bernardino, California. On February 8th, 2014, 16-year-old Daniel disappeared, said private investigator Keith Raymond. Now Raymond said Daniel may be living in San Diego. So, yeah, he's suffering from depression. There's so many things how far have you gone into the podcast? Have you listened to more than one episode yet?
I've listened to the first 2.
Okay, so there's only six or
Wait,
there's not
maybe
that
I've listened to the. Maybe I've listened to the first 3. I think I'm halfway.
Okay, there's not that many. There really isn't. Yeah. It's like maybe 9. I think so. What you'll find out, and I'm not spoiling anything by saying this to you, they may have, I don't remember the sequencing of how early they might have brought this up, but nobody in that fucking school is qualified to be there. Like,
right.
So
I mean,
nobody has
there's
not even a
that's a
credential.
It
not
seems
even
like that's a theme with these wilderness camps. I mean, it seems like if we looked into wilderness camps all over the United States, I bet you big money that would be a theme, that nobody would be qualified to be there.
Not even to teach, not even a credential to do the high schooling that these kids need. So there's nobody there who has a credential to teach them in general. Nobody has a fucking any kind of credential in any sort of therapy, mental health, psychology, psychiatry, nothing. So there's nobody with any therapeutic credentials whatsoever there. So you're basically handing your kid over to a bunch of people who have an interest in this topic, right? I guess. I don't even know. Or who are just looking to make money off of a vulnerable population of parents. But how do you send your child someplace like that? If you know they have depression and that's what they're telling you, how are you sending your kid to someplace where they're not telling you they're going to be seeing this therapist who graduated from this medical school, who's clearly capable of diagnosing and helping your child develop a therapeutic program? Like, how could you do that to your kid?
Well, how does the state of California allow this?
Because they're not called, they don't consider themselves, they're not considered a therapeutic facility. They're an alternative something. It's not even schooling. I don't even know how they classify
But they tell these people that their kids will come out graduating from high school. And they tell these people that their kids will come out ready for college. That implies that they will come out with a high school diploma. Yeah. So there's a promise there. There's an implication and a promise there. And the state of California lets them do that. And how does the state of California allow this place to continue to operate when they've had 300 children run away?
So this is in Running Springs, California. So I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for CEDU. Okay. So this was, again, the podcast goes into the history of this. So CEDU itself was founded by Mel Wasserman in 1967, right? And so they say a company owned and operated several therapeutic boarding schools and behavior modification programs in California and Idaho. The schools faced many allegations of abuse. So let me just see. All right, so let's go. I'm looking to see if they have any kind of comments about what their credentialing was. Okay. So in 67, they started the CEDU High School in Running Springs, California, and it was closed in 2005. In 82, they started a Rocky Mountain Academy in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, and that closed in 2005. Apparently 2005 was the year they closed them all. They shut them all down. 84 was Hilltop for Young Adults, Running Springs, California, which is where Daniel was. 92, CEDU Middle School, Running Springs, California. 92, Ascent Wilderness Program, Naples, Idaho. In 93, Boulder Creek Academy, Bonners Ferry, Idaho. 94, Northwest Academy, Naples, Idaho. And 99, Milestones Transitional Program, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So it says here, okay. Brown schools operate 11 boarding schools and educational facilities in California, Idaho, Texas, Vermont, and Florida. Facilities in Austin, Texas, and San Marcos, Texas were also sold to Psychiatric Solutions in 2003. CEDU closed in early 2005 due to financial problems. Several CEDU employees reported to Lake Arrowhead Mountain News, however, that pending litigation against CEDU for abuse and violation of rights, as well as citations against the schools, contributed to the downfall. Okay, so, God almighty.
So they're literally calling themselves high schools and middle schools.
Yeah.
Without any proper, and the state of California is allowing this, or Idaho, or Texas, or wherever.
Yeah.
They're allowing this, and there's no, like, there's so many, again, like Anawak, like Camp Anawaki or whatever, I can't even say the name. There's failures at every single level.
Yep.
Not just the parents.
So, and the thing is that I don't know if, let's see, a number of behavior modification facilities were opened by former CEDU staff and students, including the Mount Bachelor Academy, the Monarch School founded by Patrick McKenna, the first Rocky Mountain Academy alumni, and Daniel Olson, the Cascade School in Whitmore, California. It was closed in 2003. Oh God! Oh, so tuition at CEDU schools was about $5,700 a month. Actress Roseanne Barr and Barbara Walters are among the rich and famous who've sent their children to the academies. Interesting. So I don't know if people this will end up where the podcast goes towards the end, but I don't know if many people are aware of what this was an actual offshoot of. So, when you listen to the kids describe what went on at CEDU schools, they sound terribly like a cult. It's a cult. I don't, they talk about, as soon as I heard them talking about rap time or raps, whatever the fuck they called it, rap sessions, which were basically they all get together sessions for group therapy where they all snitch on one another and yell at one another and insult each other, or somebody sits in the middle of the room in the hot seat. I was like, oh, that sounds just like a cult. How many times have I heard that being described as cult in a cult or, in deprogram, whatever. So then later on in the podcast, you find out that it was actually based on Synanon, which is one of the worst fucking cults in California history. It started as a drug rehab program. So Charles Diedrich Sr. actually started it in the 1960s, and it was an alternative community that was centered on those group truth-telling sessions that they called the actual in the program was called the game, but it's and they classify it as a form of attack therapy. And then later on in the 70s, after it was pretty popular as a drug rehab program, it became the Church of Synanon, and that is when it went full on straight out cult. And he was stockpiling weapons. He was doing all the crazy shit that cults do. Plus brainwashing everybody that was in it, blah, blah, blah. They actually, Paul Morantz was an attorney in California. I believe it was Pacific Palisades. And he made it his mission to bring them down. And they actually put a rattlesnake in his mailbox and tried to kill him. So
Wow.
he'll be interviewed in the podcast later on. They'll talk to him. So like, and they actually play a couple of like, so they actually use their own kind of alternative communication. So I guess like Diedrich would like record himself recording messages and stuff and send them out to record tapes of messages and stuff and send them out to the members. And like, they play some of that in the podcast, and it's him basically being like, don't mess with us. You're going to get killed and you can become literally dead. And these are real threats. And like, basically, cult shit, cult shit when they like know that they're going to be, when they're going to, so they got revoked their tax exempt status, and they owed like $17 million in back taxes. And that's how that's why they dissolved because they were bankrupt. But, and Mel Wasserman, who started CEDU, was he was one of the he was a Synanon member. Like he was I guess he was a drug addict and got clean through their methods. I don't know. He's a pioneer in the unaccredited therapeutic board. So that's how it is. None of those therapeutic boarding schools are actually accredited. They're not accredited. They exist. So yeah. So like, there's just so much to get angry about watching this. So let's see. It says the National Association of Therapeutic Schools and Programs listed 140 schools and programs as of 2005. This example this Wikipedia article needs to be upgraded. But anyway, therapeutic boarding schools aim to promote growth and learning for their students in a long-term model. Therapeutic boarding schools may be accredited by an academic accrediting body, such as the New England Association of Schools and Colleges or Advanced Divisions or National Independent Private Schools Association. But the FTC advises that several nonprofit organizations, such as the Council on Accreditation, JACAHO, if you're an educator, you know what JACAHO means. It's the Joint Commission on the Council of Accreditation, and the Commission on Accreditation of Rehab Facilities accredit mental health programs and projects. So they're not accredited by these people.
Right.
So that's how they're.
So that's why they can say,
yeah,
you can be ready for high school, but no high school or college is going to touch our diploma.
Yeah. And they'll talk about this. There's a huge, like the GAO ended up doing like having a hearing in Congress about it and everything. So there was a lot like that made them. So, I mean, they still exist, but so picture this in your head for a moment. So I'm finished listening to this podcast and just have like all these feelings about being very angry about what these parents did to their kid, because I'm sorry, but it was not cool. Like I just, as a parent, I feel like I can say that. I listen to all this, I get really angry. And then I happen to stumble across this documentary from 2009 called Boy Interrupted, right? And it's made by Dana and Hart Perry, who are husband and wife filmmakers. And it's about their son, Evan, who was basically, he was diagnosed at a very early age diagnosed with depression at age 5. And then later on, at like a few years later, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and bipolar depression. And he ended up committing suicide at the age of 15, right? Mm-hmm. And they had sent him to a program called, where was it? They had sent him to a place. I want to see if I can find the name of it. Hold on. It was called Wellspring. Okay. And but this was actually a real like therapeutic facility. Like, so like doctors ran it and it was kind of like immersion. It was kind of like, it's kind of like, therapy by like in, you know, trying to get by practical life. It's like, so the parents came, they went to family therapy a lot. They could learn to communicate and understand each other better and how to communicate better with the kid. You know, he learned like how to function in society, like, you know, life skills, things like that, as well as getting like, you know, treatment and medication. And so when he got better, he was taken out of that, and he actually went back to normal school, and he was doing really well. And then, of course, what happened was that, and he was on lithium too during this time. So, and he was doing really well with the drugs, but like all people with bipolar, you know, the drugs started not working as well, or they probably needed to be changed, or, you know, things he felt like he was doing really well. Can anyone say Charles Manson? Yeah, seriously. As you comment, yeah, when you're talking about cult behavior and this shit, yes. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat for a minute. But anyway, so like, you know, so he wanted to taper off his dosage, which they started doing. And of course, it immediately changed his behavior, and he fell back into a depression, and he ended up committing suicide. And it was sad because like he committed suicide like literally 4 days before he was to go back to his doctor, and they were going to put him right back on the dosage he was on. They were going to like, they said, you know, his parents were like, okay, tried, experiment over, not working, back on medication. And so like juxtapose that experience with this bullshit that I'm listening to. And I was like so upset that night. And it was a very good documentary. It was really heartbreaking, but it was a really good insight into how hereditary depression and mental illness, because his father had a younger brother who was bipolar and had committed suicide when he was like 20 something. So it was like exactly, and he straight out said it was exactly the same situation. Like he felt it was like reliving that over again. So this poor man. And it was also just so, it just was just such a damning show of like how awful bipolar depression nearly is, or bipolar disorder really is. My best friend's oldest daughter is bipolar, and the stories she can tell you of the self-harm, the suicide attempt at young ages, like the stuff that they went through is so awful and heartbreaking. And you know, it's just awful. And I think the best insight about bipolar disorder that I've ever heard came from the therapist that they showed in this documentary. And he said, you know, in psychiatry, bipolar disorder is like our cancer. Like we can save some people and we treat it and we can save some people, but ultimately it kills a lot more people, you know, and we can possibly save people, but at some point, you know, it'll come back, or, you know, in comparison to cancer, it's like you'll come out of remission, and it might get you that point. He's like, you know, it always happens at some point with people who suffer, they go off their medication, you know, it just happens. Like, that's just what happens. People end up going off their medication, and you know, it can lead to really bad things. Like it can lead to death. And he's like, and this is our cancer. He's like, you know, we can't cure anybody of it, and we can maybe save some people from it, but most people will die of it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty dead on for like, I was like, that's a pretty good analogy right there. And it was so sad. And, you know, his parents, you know, his mom, it was so awful, but like, you know, she was just like, I can't imagine how much pain he must have been in at 15 to think that his life was never going to get any better. And that being dead was more of what felt much like the better choice than living with his mental illness for the rest of his life. And I can't, even in my deepest depression, I've never felt like death was probably the better option. So I can't even imagine, like, I can't even go there and understand it. I'm not going to judge that, because that's, you know, it's his mental illness, and he was ill, you know, he's profoundly ill. I have nothing but sympathy for that. And as a mother, I have nothing but empathy towards that. But the other thing that he said the doctor was saying was because they found a suicide note, and he literally like wrote out a list, like things worth living for, and it was like 6 things. Things were not worth living for were 6 things. And then he was like, I'm sorry, please, he left a couple of instructions, and that was the end. And they showed it to the doctor, the psychiatrist, and he was like, one of the things I really can't stand is how mental illness is portrayed in media or like any kind of like entertainment. It's always like people are ranting and raving and so insane and stuff like that, but nobody talks about the depth of mental illness and insanity that comes with being so completely like being able to write out an exacting list of what you should do, like the saneness of it, the insanely insane, right? Like
right.
And he was just like, this is not somebody who's in a ranting, raving, like lunacy. This is somebody who is calculatingly like calm, collected, and writing this out. And I was like, God, man, so yeah, I might have a lot of feelings about that podcast and about the people in it. And the whole situation about like, the whole like therapeutic boarding school bullshit thing. That's not really true. Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings about that. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really, it's awful. It's awful. I don't understand. Like even somebody said in a like critique of it, they're like, hi, these are all parents who shouldn't be parents. And I was like, I kind of feel that way because none of these kids seemed like they were out of control to me. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know because I don't have an out of control child, knock on wood. But even if my kid was in trouble and getting in trouble with the law and having issues like that, I still just don't see myself washing my hands of it and saying, I got to send you someplace because I can't control you anymore. And can I also just say another thing that I kept thinking about? We were not raised like this. Like, what the fuck? Like, if I was drinking or smoking, like, my parents would just smack the shit out of me, yell at me, ground me, and it would be over. Like, do people not, like, yell at their kids anymore or, like, smack them and, like, punish them? Like, does that not happen anymore? Like, I don't get it. I think I lost Angie. I definitely lost Angie. Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing that I just don't get.
You can't hear me?
No, well, now I can.
Oh, you couldn't hear me before? I'm sorry. I thought you couldn't.
No.
I was here. I was going to say this. I was going to say, especially in 2004, I think that there is a lot of parent shaming that happens. And I think that, no, you can't just smack your kid anymore. You just can't. Can you imagine smacking your kid if somebody saw that and put it on Twitter?
Oh God. See, that's the problem with this shit. Because
exactly.
Like I can count on one hand the number of times my parents actually had to hit me. Okay? Or my sister for that matter. But like we knew not to fuck. There was a point you didn't fuck around. Like there was I don't know. Like I don't know how or why it happens. Like I don't know like what it was. I don't know. It wasn't fear.
Go on TikTok and look at the way kids do pranks on their parents now. Like there's no line that kids won't cross, and there's all sorts of lines that if a parent crosses, it's child abuse, it's outrage, and it used to be called discipline.
See, my kids try that shit every now and again because they watch that stuff. They see it. Like both my kids tried to pull this shit where they were like calling Scott and I by our names, and I was like, I was like, no. I was like, and even their aunt and uncle, I'm like, no, because they're like, I'm like, no, uncle. I was like, Mom, Dad, like, we are not that kind of family. Okay. I said, you do not call me by my first name. I'm sorry. That is not our relationship. And, I was like, we don't do that. Like, I'm sorry. I was like, I said to Paul, I was like, it's a respectful thing. You do not call me that. We are not friends. I am your parent. And I'm sorry, but that's, we don't talk to each other like that. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't understand it.
But I think that, so there's that. And I think that, like you said in the beginning, like, even though we don't necessarily understand it or wouldn't participate in it ourselves, I think there is definitely a cultural aspect that because it's not our culture, we just don't understand it. But like, grades are a lot in Asian cultures. Grades are
I know. I mean, grades were extraordinarily important to my parents too. Like it was drilled into our heads.
I don't think it's the same. I really don't.
It's not the same. It's not. I mean, it's not.
I don't mean to. I'm trying to be really careful and not like be making stereotypes, but it just seems like it's extra. Like I've had conversations with people in Asian cultures who have children with special needs and will never make it to kindergarten, and the things that they've had to do to come to terms with not having a child who will go to college, like.
Well, I mean, let's be honest.
Overwhelming, but
we've all heard about that, like, tiger mom phenomenon. Like, that was a thing. But I mean, like, you're talking about a culture from countries and areas in the world where, education and how far you progress in education is based on how well you do, right? I mean, so it's not like the US where everybody just passes it up. Like, I mean,
right.
There are very, very, very strict pathways that are followed. And so, yes, education is extraordinarily important in different cultures, in some cultures, right. Because that's your only, in everybody's eyes, that's their only pathway towards success and getting out. So I get that. I really do.
So there's that stress and behavior. And then I think that there's room to say that Daniel's parents did the best, even though we may not agree with it, perhaps they did the best they could with who they were and what they had, and it still caused harm. Like, there's room for both things to be true.
Yes, you're right.
Like,
you're right.
I don't think that saying they shouldn't be parents is a fair thing to say.
I don't think that.
They didn't do anything with malice. Like, I think there's a difference between taking him and being sort of.
No, you're right. They did not
led like sheep.
Yeah.
The way they told their story, they kind of behaved like sheep. And
they were very upset about it. They feel very regretful.
But the idea that they would let their son go into a room with someone that they couldn't see and then never see him again, like, that's very alarming to me. Yeah. Like, I don't know that, like, that would be a red flag to me. Like, I don't think
the minute they say to me, they're going to call you and they're going to say all this shit to you about how much they hate it here and don't like it, just ignore everything they say. Like, okay. I mean, like
all of that would be like, disconnected phone calls and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe I might be like, okay, my kid hates it, so I'm not going to listen to it. But the minute they fucking pull the plug on the phone call because they say something to me specific, that's when I'm like, I'm on the next plane out getting my kid. Okay, you don't do that.
Yeah, that's definitely red flag territory. But I'm just saying, like, nothing they did was in malice.
No, they did nothing that meant harm.
Unlike the parents who would have their kid kidnapped. Like, that's a different story.
They definitely, I don't feel like they did it I don't think they did it out of harm, out of malice or with intent to harm. But I do think that they were possibly buying into a little bit of a little bit more of their how troubled their kid may seem than he really was. Like, I
And
mean,
let somebody else fix it. Here, send them back fixed. Like, definitely. Like, there's definitely like plenty of fault to share. Like, there's responsibility for this whole situation to go around.
right. I mean, we don't know a lot about anything that we don't know
Right.
much or anything. I mean, like, they say they took him to multiple psychiatrists and therapists. Who the hell knows what was said? They claimed that he had depression. So to me, I'm just like, okay, well, if you got a diagnosis of depression, like, are you trying medication? Are you trying therapy? Like, are you trying family therapy? Like, I mean, there's nothing I wouldn't do before I'd send my kid away. Like, to me,
Right.
sending my kid away is like the last resort. And it would take a lot for me to get to that point because, I don't know. I don't see how taking a kid and taking them away from everything that's familiar to them. And, that includes things that are comforting to them. Whether it be their room, their friends, just being in a town that they've lived in their entire life, not being surrounded by strangers, whatever, and uprooting them from all of that and throwing them into some crazy, like, that, I would also want to be like, if I was going to do that, I'd want to see a treatment plan for my kid.
Yeah.
It definitely should not be a situation where the kid got taken in to talk to the dean and you never saw this person or talk to them yourself. And then 20 minutes later, you're told you should probably leave because it'll make it better for it not to. I'd be like, no, we're sticking around. I want my kid evaluated by your therapists. I want to see a therapeutic plan that you think might help. And we're not leaving for a couple of days until we see something happen. Like, it's not going to be this, like, drop them off. And we're not dropping the kid off at the pound. Okay. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, like, they don't know. I mean, maybe they don't know any better and they don't know. And they were totally sold on whatever this promotional propaganda material the school puts out. But, like, I don't know. Like, I have to lay a little blame at their feet because, again, like,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be walking away from
Yes.
any place that wouldn't tell me what their plan is for my child.
This is
And that means, like, a therapeutic plan of action that you plan on helping this person with their depression. Like, I want to know, like, what's that going to do? Like, I don't know. School of Hard Knocks. Literally the School of Hard Knocks. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the fact that this kid was like, I could go down the side of a mountain or go back to my room. I think I'll go down the side of a mountain in the middle of winter. Like, I mean, come on. And there was just a lot. I mean, aside from the crazy therapy sessions, there was a lot. It sounded like there's a lot of inappropriateness happening there, like physical inappropriateness going on there, which you'll learn more about as you listen to the podcast. So, yeah, I have a lot of feelings about that, and none of them are good. And I say this as a person, like, I say this as a parent that, my kids are, right now they're still very young. They're 6 and 7, but I mean, it's still difficult. They still, they're both very smart. And I have one that is a little challenging. My oldest is a little challenging. She, she's insanely smart, way smarter for her age than she should be. But, she's like oblivious. And we love her to death, but we just are like, you're special, kid. You're a special kid. Like, I mean, some stuff, like she gets I think she's got some issues with her emotion, like not like handling stuff. Like, I think she gets very overwhelmed, and we try to help her with anxiety and, feeling things, and we work in the best that we can. And if I felt like, we've taken her before to a therapist and they were, very helpful. And I feel like if I take her again, I'll take her again in a heartbeat. I don't give a shit. I just want my kid happy and healthy, like,
Right.
and if we had to go to family therapy, I'd go to whatever it takes. Like, this is my life. This is what my responsibility is. And I just don't see myself like it would take, even if my kid killed somebody, I would still be like, you're going to jail because you did it. And I'd be heartbroken, but I wouldn't be like, I'm turning my back on you while you're in prison. Like, I just don't know. Like, I there's so many what ifs. You could spin this out forever, but like, I just don't. Maybe if they sent them someplace that was closer to home that they could see more frequently, I wouldn't feel as bad. But like, they literally shipped their kid to the other side of the country where they knew they weren't going to be able to see them very often, and they knew that their communication was going to be very limited. Right. And I just feel like if you have a kid that's already troubled, and you're concerned about, wouldn't you want to be in some kind of communication with them? Like, I don't know. It was just bothered. It was very upsetting to listen to. And you know what? I really do hope he's still alive. And I really do hope that he's living his best life as much as he can. Yeah. And I would love to have him reach out and just, even if it's just to tell us, I would just like, it would make me happy if he would just let his parents know he's alive so that they can stop beating themselves up about that. I get not wanting to ever talk to them again after this experience, because God knows, we don't even know what he experienced for the short time he was there. So we don't know. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows. I get it. Like, I get not wanting to talk to them if you're angry or whatever. But I mean, I would at least just drop them a line and tell them you're alive so they can at least stop living without you. Right. That would be my hope for the outcome. But like, again, I really do hope he's alive. I'm not entirely sure I trust this detective that they have, our private investigator that they got. You'll hear more about him later. So I'm just like, I don't know.
And there's another thing about laying the blame at the parents' feet. Like, they have to live with the decision they made for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, they do.
Whether their son is alive or dead, they're probably never going to see him ever again. And they have to live with the decision they made for the rest of their lives. And they were just trying to help him. Like, there was no malice in what they did. They were just trying to help. Now, here people are just having a conversation about the choices they made now. Like,
it's sad. I mean, it really is sad. I do feel for them.
Can you imagine that they don't blame themselves every single day?
Oh, I'm sure they do. I would too. I'd blame myself every single day. I would. I really would. But I don't know. I don't know. So apparently in the Wayback Machine, there's an actual blog that used to be called Surviving Sea-Doo. And there was a document. It says, Surviving Sea-Doo tells the story of a half a dozen teenagers. It was a documentary who were each sent to the Sea-Doo school, variously described to them as a standard boarding school, a wilderness adventure school, or a therapeutic learning environment in the western mountains of the United States. But the experience of the school was something entirely different. Students quickly found themselves in a new, strange, uncomfortable, and often frightening world of intense group relationships and heightened, invasive, and violent group therapies. Relationships at the school between students and staff seemed to have little formal structure or sense of normal boundary, and a student's life was always under the threat of intense and unpredictable disciplining and punishment. The Sea-Doo schools, one in California and one in Idaho, were each located in a mountain wilderness, and students soon discovered that they were teenage captives without identification or money in an imposing geography they could not easily or safely negotiate or escape. The real origins of the Sea-Doo school remained hidden from the students, their parents, and much of the staff until years after their graduation or departure. At the heart of the Sea-Doo program was a philosophy that had grown out of various self-help movements of the 1960s and 70s, such as LifeSpring, Werner Erhard's EST therapy, and most directly from Charles Dieterich's Synanon cult, church and street-level heroin cure program. The Sea-Doo schools developed into an industry of sister schools, clones, and copycats that are now a multi-million-dollar international and unregulated business. Surviving CEDU follows the narratives of these students 15 to 20 years after leaving, graduating, or escaping from this unique, troubling, and isolated world. Clips from the documentary will be made available here and through video sharing websites. The documentary is still in production. The schedule will be updated here. So what is the date on this? Hold on. Just out of curiosity. I don't even know if it has a date. Hold on.
It's on the Wayback Machine.
It is on the Wayback Machine. Yeah. It's from, and there's like a shit ton of comments on it. Oh, this is from September 25th, 2011.
That's not even that way back.
It's 10 years ago. Because it's probably, I don't know. Probably because it doesn't, the site probably doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So, but there's like a shit ton of comments left on here. So it's probably like all, let's see. My parents were the same way, mainly because I never said anything negative about it in their minds anyway. I think it was hard for parents to send their kids away to have others raise them and to later learn the place was an abusive cult. Once anyone delves deeper into the history and methods used, few can come away thinking it was positive. Oh, God. Yeah.
Wow.
Just having a parent watch the I Want to Live portion of the documentary paints a pretty good picture. Nowadays, programs have changed the names from Profit, you'll get that in a minute, you'll understand that as you listen further, to Workshop, to all sorts of names. But from what I've been reading, the same Profits are used in other programs and have remained fairly much the same. And in that chapter of the documentary, you listen to the former student reading from the Profit scroll and his own journal, and it's just nonsensical and bizarre and hard to follow. You really hear the cult language with things like sculpting and so on, which would not make much sense to outsiders. And when you explain to parents and survivors that sleep deprivation, hot and cold temperature changes to make kids freeze or sweat, with loud blaring and repetitive music played, the endless screaming, and how this is all well established as basic methods of torture and interrogation, who can argue that it wasn't abusive and that it was designed as such? That the people who created these programs didn't make this stuff up themselves. They studied up on it all enough to have some basic idea of what they were doing. Maybe not the staff who came into the programs later on, who maybe assumed it was all normal and proper, but those who founded the original programs, Synanon, Est, Lifespring, CEDU, they knew. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So the Profit, they talk about it later on, but it's like a marathon rap session that's like hours long. And they consider, like, if you get that, if you survive that, you've like hit a pinnacle moment in your therapy, according to like that. I don't know.
That's insane.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really was. I was the first new student at Cascade School, 84 to 87, founded by students and faculty from CEDU. Cascade had faculty from RMA and CEDU. My support to all the kids who went through difficult times. My view is that these programs were a product of the Just Say No, AA, New Age hypocrisy, morphed from the 70s to 80s and getting more bizarre and twisted in the 90s. Bad philosophy and scratch the surface therapy strewn together from many sources. Our parents really sucked to let it come to this. What astonishes me is how little our parents cared for our well-being. Problem is the parents believed in most of the same New Age crap at home. Wasserman had to have some ego to design Profits. That is some mentally bizarre psychology, totally unnecessary for youth. Cascade was founded 2 years later than RMA. I think it's Rocky Mountain Academy. I heard from old students there may have been a falling out from CEDU, perhaps based on some type of power struggle among staff. Cascade may have been built to avoid some of the negatives of abuse developing in CEDU. From what I can see, Cascade had the same problems with unaccredited staff and abuse of power that we see happen again and again in all facets of society today. Again, to me, the shock is parents would send children to these schools and act oblivious to the abusive therapy, which was obvious. We had problems in the first place because of terrible parenting, and then told at the school that it was all our fault. The two worked well together and made bad parents go on with their lives in justification. The money spent was astronomical, way overpriced considering all the labor we did for the school. Like many of you, I haven't thought about the school in a long time, and the memories start to pour out. Learn from the experience. There were positive elements as well as negative. Life happens, and we, the students of these schools, had unique education beyond explanation. I guess.
Wow.
Right?
It's like traumatizing just listening to that.
Right. My parents speak almost exactly the same way when I asked them what they knew. This was all in response to like a couple of people, like a original post. I can't find the original post, but it says my parents speak almost exactly the same way when I asked them what they knew or what they felt about RMA. I really think it's at Rocky Mountain Academy. Positive spin. I blame them for a lot, but I know these programs prey on parents and they're good at it. 30 to 40 years, you get pretty decent at something. This makes me wonder how most kids arrived at RMA and CEDU. I, for one, was not really told anything, just that I was going to Idaho to attend a new school. Nothing about therapy was mentioned, but it wasn't a huge surprise. I was in juvenile hall for 3 weeks. They had me leaving 3 times a week to see a, quote, family psychologist who had never worked with kids before, but my parents had used him, so nobody questioned this. And during my visits, they made it clear from day one I was not coming home, that I would have to plead guilty in court, then accept this out-of-state placement, and that I would be in Idaho till my 18th birthday or graduation. But in 3 weeks, I had no input on where I was going. I wasn't told it would be therapeutic, only that they had no homework assignments. This was my parents' issue. I was not doing all my homework, so they wanted a place where they thought I could get a high school diploma. Secret Harbor and Provo Canyon were the other 2 choices, but they weren't clear about academics, so RMA was the choice. CEDU was discarded because they felt I would possibly have run away if I was in the state of California, as though the extra 600 miles from Idaho would have deterred me. I just get the feeling my parents didn't know much about the therapeutic aspects of the program and probably didn't care. I wasn't being sent for drug use, alcohol use, or partying or doing anything wild, just for grades and homework. And I bet that RMA told them what they wanted to hear. I've read through some of the correspondence my parents sent back and forth with the school while I was there, and all of it focused on what classes I was taking, what my attendance record was, completion of assignments, nothing else. When RMA was asking if I could go on ski trips or get a mountain bike, my parents didn't think any of this was useful to pass in classes. So I'm pretty sure the therapy stuff was not discussed, and during visits, school was all they were interested in hearing about. In the documentary, many kids didn't know what the school was going to be like either. They may have known they were going or thought they were just going to a tour of campus with the choice of saying no, a possibility. For me, I don't think my parents had any clue about what was really going to happen up there. They had one goal in mind, a diploma, and anything else was fine so long as it led me to that goal. I think this is why when I talk to them about it today and question what they knew, it all seems vague to them, unclear, because they weren't focused on therapy. Yet when I graduated with a diploma, it wasn't enough. I didn't get to come home, go to college a block away as my other siblings did, a JC that has an automatic transfer program to UC Berkeley. They were done with me. They told me on graduation day, good luck, you're on your own. So to this day, I get the impression RMA didn't send glowing appraisals and updates. I think my parents believe I barely got my diploma, nearly failing, and that the few disciplinary actions against me were blown out of proportion and left them with the sense I was still some horrible person for missing homework assignments, and that clearly college was out of the question, well beyond my intellectual capacity. So if healing was supposed to have taken place from my parents' perspective, it didn't. And therefore, from my perspective, it didn't. Ironic, considering I pretty much got straight A's at RMA. Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Interesting. It's crazy.
Came out really well spoken from RMA as well.
Right? I agree. It would be nice to see justice happen so that these programs find it hard, if not impossible, to remain open if similar program methods are employed. I'm not against therapy, but I think most of us agree that what we went through was not therapy. If a program opened up that offered legitimate help to kids without any abuse, humiliation, or guilt, that might be a good thing. The 2 topics are justice and forgiveness, so I'll address both. Forgiveness is a tough one for me. My mother's a Quaker and has never seemed to have forgiven me for my youth, so I'm not sure it's part of their religion. I've always believed forgiveness is an individual thing. Each person must decide if they will forgive on their own. Many survivors I've heard from make statements that they don't feel any of the staff were out to intentionally cause us harm. Therefore, what they did wasn't quite so bad. I can agree with the concept that someone who intentionally seeks to cause harm is not as bad as someone who does it inadvertently. However, I can't accept that none of these adults didn't have some inkling that what they were doing to us wasn't good, that all of them didn't know any better. As kids, our first reactions said something was up and didn't feel right. I found it hard to believe no staff member the same questioning going on inside them. Just take a Profit, for instance. Don't most parents have a natural tendency to overreact when it comes to protecting their children? They won't let you go outside when it's cold without a coat or sweater, right? So how could all of these adults turn down the heat, open the doors and windows to make the room freezing, and then calmly collect all our warm clothes and make them vanish into another room, specifically to make us cold and uncomfortable, and not know that was wrong, not know precisely what they were doing? Or take sleep. Most parents, when they see their child sitting in front of a television set at 2 a.m. with their child nodding, trying to stay awake, will say, "I think it's time for bed." They shut the TV off and make you go upstairs and sleep. They don't try to keep you awake longer. I cannot picture any normal parent sending you to your room without supper, turning off the heat, opening the doors and windows, then forcing you to stay awake all night. That would be absolutely bizarre. So I think adults would have to come into a situation like this knowing that it was wrong. And food. Most people would sense their child is hungry, or know when they last ate a full meal. They wouldn't deny it to them unless I suppose it was meant as a punishment, such as go to your room without supper. Nor would a parent likely deny a child access to the bathroom if the child said they had to go. And also, if their child was crying and saying they were really, really hungry, most parents would back down and give them the supper, because the punishment is meant as a lesson, not to damage. So even setting aside the blaring and repetitive music, the psychological trauma that took place, the cold, the sleep deprivation, the food denial, the bathroom denial, most adults would know these were wrong. Thus, this perception that they didn't do harm to us intentionally is bogus. They knew, just as we knew when our guts told us that smushing with adults, the wraps, the forced labor didn't sit right. We knew and they knew, and as adults, we expect them to have better sense of judgment than we as kids would have. And then consider explaining these methods to a programmed parents. We're going to take your kid in a room late at night with no warning when they would normally think they were going to sleep. We're going to turn down the heat and open the doors and windows so it gets really cold, remove their warm clothing from their possession so they'll shiver and be very uncomfortable because it's late at night and they'll be exhausted after a full day of hard labor. We're going to help keep them awake using loud and repetitive music. We'll be screaming at them and keeping them involved. Their energy levels will eventually deplete because of the exhaustion. And did we mention we won't be feeding them all night so they continue to lack energy? What parent wouldn't have pulled their kid there then and there? So there was a need for this stuff to be kept a secret from parents. And if they knew they needed to keep it a secret, they knew it was wrong. So again, the claim they didn't set out to intentionally cause harm falls apart. So forgiveness to me, for at least, is difficult to give when I consider it was done intentionally and that they knew. Good point. Good points. Very good points.
Very good point.
So God only knows what this kid experienced the month long he was there.
Another well-spoken alumni.
I know, right? Apparently all these kids are terrible students and like absolutely all like awful people. So I don't know. No clue.
It's just terrible. It's just we're so messed up. Like why do people like prey upon children and old people? I just don't understand it. What kind of people do that? It's so terrible.
Evil people. I mean, I know that's simple, but yeah. I don't know. I think it's that easy.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's just terrible.
I know.
It's the Pollyanna in me.
It's okay. It's okay. I love it. The Church of Synanon, as Gizmodo smartly put it, was, quote, a tyrant's ant farm masquerading as a grand experiment with the good life. I love it. I kind of love that. Oh, my God. The tyrant was Charles E. Diedrich, a hypermasculine addict, alcoholic who ran Synanon like a drug lord. Wow. Oh, that's right. Okay, so yeah, that was the thing. So after they went from being like a drug rehab program, right? So it says, under Diedrich's rabid, loopy leader, I'm reading an article off Medium. Under Diedrich's rabid, loopy leadership, Synanon went from treating substance abusers with attack therapy when they became a church, to forcing them into vasectomies and abortions and divorces and partner swapping and head shaving. Chuck's good life also came equipped with a militia, the Imperial Marines, and as People magazine wrote in 1978, rumors of an arms cache worth $300,000. So yeah, culty. So
maybe a little bit. I mean,
a little bit, slightly.
Bit. I didn't hear anything about Kool-Aid.
No, well, that's they don't want him. They don't want him to die. They just want them to like listen to them. Oh, huh. All right. So this is interesting. So I guess this is person that was there. I'm still struggling to understand what this is. An article on Medium called "Running My Anger: The Legacy of the Sea-Doo Cult." It's by an anonymous writer. It's lengthy, but like it's like a whole thing. But he makes a point. He's like, I'm still struggling to understand whether this was a steal or tribute or both. Nevertheless, there's an overwhelming evidence that Sea-Doo was an acronym for Charles E. Diedrich University. At any rate, my parents learned about the Sea-Doo Synanon relationship in 2015. At first, they were confused and incredulous. Then they were confused and devastated. I wondered why my parents never asked about the program's bizarre name. We believe what we were told, my mother said. The common explanation was that Sea-Doo stood for see yourself as you are and do something about it, whatever the hell that means. For obscure reasons, this see yourself, do something line was widely accepted, and yet a 1968 San Bernardino Sun article says that Sea-Doo was a manufactured name Mel Wasserman, his wife, and early members gave to encounter groups. Oh, God almighty. Yeah. So I think this writer actually went there.
I mean, I could almost go with the Charles E. whatever University, but where's the Charles come from with the S? Or is it?
No, it's spelled C-E-D-U. It's spelled C-E. Yeah. Oh my God. So this kid went there after what I believed as a teenager is my belief now. Sea-Doo committed family annihilation without the actual murder. Yet maybe the Settles, decades later, are a tighter, stronger family, even if I'm told Mama and Papa are long divorced and their foundation renamed itself the Friends of Families with Children in Crisis. Okay, so after the Settles endorsement, my parents scheduled a Sea-Doo tour. My mother journeyed alone. When she arrived on campus, her guide wasn't a Sea-Doo staffer. She doesn't remember meeting adults, but two older students, one male and one female. An instant bond. The female resident happened to hail from a suburb 8 miles south from my hometown, which is, they do this on purpose because Daniel said that they found a Chinese student to give his parents a tour, right?
Yep.
In a facility housing teenagers from all over the country, it was no coincidence that my disoriented and duped mother was now connecting with a neighbor. What's more, this neighbor's family had also discovered Sea-Doo via my therapist. I soon learned there was a batch of North Shore teenagers he helped enroll, and I'll always wonder if Sea-Doo paid him for his professional, or if I guarantee they did. Here's another dizzying thought. When I reached the older student status, I had to give campus tours too. I barely remember them. But once I was fully obedient, a walkthrough with parents of prospective resident was an expectation, a privilege. The inmates didn't just sell the prison, we also maintained it. Half the day was consumed by groundskeeping and house chores, relentlessly staging a home wherein we had no personal belongings, keeping the facility in showing-ready shape. My mother said she left the forested property thinking it was pretty. There was never a glimpse behind the facade. She didn't ask if counselors were licensed, if therapies were barbarous. She didn't see an adult continuously punishing and cuddling with a child. She didn't overhear Sea-Doo's very own lingo. A forum for survivors of abusive teen programs has a wiki article on Sea-Doo's secret language. It's a partial list of terms. It's currently at 120. And the docents never leaned in close and whispered, "Get as far away from this place as you can." Still, the uprooted North Shore neighbor offered a friendly tip. "Don't hire a youth passport service. Children need a humane deportation," she insisted. Wow, that sounds completely fucked up.
Wow.
Youth transport service, humane deportation. Okay. My committal was a group effort, but ultimately it was CEDU children, teen capos acting like California real estate agents who closed the deal. Jesus Christ. Oh, I genuinely believe my child development ended in CEDU's admin office. Entirely unknown to my family, the first counselor I met, a smirking, leering 40-something with a boyish haircut and a southern preacher voice, strip searched and cavity searched me. The CEDU move-in process also involved a Polaroid mugshot, handing over civilian clothes, and signing a student procedures, rules, policies, guidelines, and rights form. The agreement was a sacred pact between a new enrollee and CEDU. The child agrees to give up, for example, magazines, books, and credit cards, money, and purses, wallets, cameras, radios. In return, CEDU promises it will provide a safe, healthful, and comfortable new home that is free from corporal or unusual punishment, infliction of pain, humiliation, intimidation, ridicule, coercion, threat, mental abuse, or other actions of punitive nature. That's a long fucking list.
That they break every single one of.
Right? It says once signed, a staffer would conceal the agreement form and CEDU would begin ignoring its own policies. Oh, God almighty.
Once signed, a staffer would seal it and burn it.
Yeah. More boys than you could count were inspected by the male staffer who searched me. Like most, I immediately sensed he was a sleazebag. And despite allegations of serial pedophilic behavior, far worse than invasive and humiliating searches, he is still working with children, this time at a private Mennonite high school in Pennsylvania. Remarkably, over the years, students and parents at Doc Mennonite Academy have contacted CEDU survivors wishing to understand their handsy educator with sexual secrets. It's apparent he has an affinity for boys, the father of a Doc Mennonite high schooler wrote to me in February 2019. And yet, as it was in CEDU world, Counselor Sleazebag remains locally powerful and unprosecutable. According to the father's testimony, the community remains idle. He went on, it's very concerning to me to see the overall pattern of Counselor Sleabag's behavior as it aligns with that of a sexual predator. How a distressed Doc Mennonite parent described a former CEDU counselor to me in 2019 is how I failed to describe him and the prior program to my parents in 1999, an effective manipulator who keeps his victims silent. Wow. There's a lot to unpack here. I have to read this article in full later. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. CEDU, the toasty CEDU, the great jet skis. They are great jet skis, but unfortunately, we're not talking about jet skis. Yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Far Rockaway. Why is Frank Lynch mentioning Far Rockaway? I'm just wondering because I grew up near Far Rockaway. Anyway, wow, we've been on for 2 hours.
Wow.
Wow. What time is it? It's 10. Hi. How you feeling, Ava? Good? You gonna say hi?
Can I hey?
Hi.
Hey, Miss Ava.
The woman at the nurse at the urgent care was hysterical. She was like, "Oh my God, you've got your twin." She's like, "You have a mini you."
Hey, Mom.
I was like, "Yes, I do."
On my foot.
Sorry, didn't go sit on my lap. Better?
Yeah, better.
Right.
You gonna have password to say?
No.
Hi.
Hi.
So see, there's Toasty. He said, "Hello, Ava."
Hi,
And Angie's here too.
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
She says hi.
I like your kitty background.
That's her. That's Gladys.
Gladys, I like your cat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I heard her.
You don't need to hold the mic, hon.
Oh, okay.
Are you tired? Huh?
Me?
No, my daughter. I'm getting tired. Are you getting tired, Angie?
Yeah. I'm getting tired. Tired.
I'm gonna be a little tired. I had a busy day today.
I know. I'm not going to talk. We're going to talk about that off stream.
There may or may not have been ocean water involved.
You're cute. You're cute.
I'm not a buddy.
I think on that note, we're gonna wrap up this stitch and bitch. Even though I didn't stitch a lot after all, we always get on a good topic though. So I guess we're gonna have to like have a recap later after you finish the podcast, and we'll talk about it. Because I just like went off on it for quite some time, but I would definitely like to hear your thoughts at the end of it. So let's wrap this one up, and we're gonna talk off air because I want to hear about this story. Thanks everybody who came to listen and lurk and talk. I appreciate it. I feel a lot better that even if I just came out here and talked for like babbled on. Angie, thanks for like, keeping me company.
Bye,
Colleen, I hope you're feeling better, honey.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
And we'll come back on Monday with we're going to do Monday since it is July 4th. Do you have plans for Monday? Angie? Okay, so we're gonna broadcast on Monday. We're gonna talk about the Strictly Stalking podcast, like we said we are. We're ready to go. I'm not working, so I don't have to worry about any of that. So Monday and Wednesday we will do that discussion. So we look forward to seeing you there. It'll be a good one, I think, definitely. We'll have lots to talk about. So until then, guys, have a great weekend. Happy 4th of July. Don't party too much.
Happy 4th
Be
of
safe, everybody.
Mommy, your dog.
I know my dog is very upset right now. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.